Okay, let's unpack this journey into identity, duty, and lineage. Our focus today is on Corran Horn, a deeply skilled New Republic pilot, a decorated veteran, and critically, a former detective from the Corellian Security Force, or CORSEC.
Right.
This deep dive tracks that precise moment. Corran is forced to shred his well-maintained persona and confront a past he'd, tried to bury.
And it all happens because his wife, Merax, vanishes without a trace.
Exactly. This is the moment a tactical operative is forced into an absolute identity crisis happening at light speed.
It's not just a personal crisis, though. It's a galactic one, and that's what makes this story so rich.
Sure.
We're examining a tumultuous period for the New Republic. They are in a state of chaotic recovery. If you look at the source documents, they paint a picture of immense vulnerability.
Absolutely. The New Republic had just survived events like Thrawn's assault, which left the center of the galaxy, Coruscant, shattered.
And not just a little bit of damage. We're talking about vast sections of the cityscape being gouged out, huge furrows running through residential neighborhoods, buildings twisted into just wreckage.
It was truly apocalyptic.
Yeah.
The recovery effort itself became this fascinating social study.
Indeed. What stands out in the notes is this unexpected humanitarian surge that followed.
Right.
The suffering was so vast that it created a strange kind of common bond, even among traditionally xenophobic groups.
Like the old imperial families.
Exactly. They were suddenly taking in refugees from diverse species, breaking down those pre-existing cultural barriers. So it's a context of both destruction and this fragile nascent hope.
But the vacuum created by that destruction invited immediate threats.
Mm-hmm.
While they were rebuilding, piracy was running rampant. We have the figure of Admiral Leonia Tavira and her forces, the Invids, just preying on defenseless shipping.
And layered beneath that visible crime, the sources hint at a far more ancient existential threat stirring.
That's the most critical context for Corran's mission.
Yeah.
The resurgence of the dark side.
Yeah. Right. Luke Skywalker is trying to establish the Jedi Academy, but the sources make it clear that the influence of the ancient Dark Lord Exar Kun is beginning to creep back into the galaxy.
And it's specifically targeting the new Jedi Order.
So Corran's personal mission to save his wife is happening while the entire New Republic is fighting a three-front war: Reconstruction, organized crime, and the dark side.
So our mission today is to unpack the surprising, sometimes conflicting motivations that led Corran to this crisis.
And we have to start with something incredibly domestic. The discussion about having children and how that concept became the emotional detonator for the entire story.
Yeah, and from there we'll explore how his deeply rooted CORSEC training, his need for logic and control, clashed with his inherent connection to the Corellian Jedi lineage.
And finally, we'll trace the razor's edge decisions he had to make during his high-stakes undercover operation against the ruthless Admiral Tavira.
Decisions that ultimately defined his integrity. We're tracking how he synthesized his pilot skills, his detective instincts, and his new, terrifyingly powerful force abilities to save the woman he loved. Let's see how he decided what kind of man he needed to be. Okay, we have to start with the most surprising emotional catalyst. The discussion about having children.
It really is.
Merax, who, let's be honest, is a genius at persuasion. I mean, she makes a living convincing people to buy junk they don't need. She used an absolutely potent emotional argument to convince Corran.
One that cut right to his core.
Oh, yeah.
It was incredibly effective psychological warfare, and it worked precisely because she knew him so well.
He's such an analytical person.
And she bypassed all of his logical defenses by appealing to his deepest well of emotion. His immense respect and love for his deceased adoptive father.
She didn't argue about her biological clock or simple desire.
Not at all. We learned that she argued that his father had done this magnificent job raising him, creating the man he was today.
And that by continually delaying having children, Corran was dishonoring his memory.
That phrase, dishonoring his memory, that's what hammered him. It leveraged his guilt and his respect, making the act of delaying feel like an ethical failure rather than just a logistical one.
He was instantly on the defensive. He couldn't deploy the usual CORSEC shields he used to deflect emotional arguments.
And it wasn't just a raw emotional appeal. She subtly appealed to his analytical side, too.
Right. The sources mention her making little comments about the specific kind of child their unique genetic lottery would produce.
And that instantly engaged the detective in him, didn't it? It became a mystery he felt compelled to solve, an analysis he couldn't leave incomplete.
The CORSEC mind thrives on patterns and predictability. The idea of their combined genetic potential presented an unsolvable puzzle that just grabbed his attention.
And Mirax, being the master strategist, also employed the cultural zeitgeist perfectly.
Yes, the source material explicitly calls out the Leia Organa Solo effect.
She knew when to flick on the holonet, didn't she? Whenever news about Leia's 3-year-old twins, described in the sources as frighteningly cute, was showing, it became part of the conversation.
And the material explains that the mere existence of the Solo children had been blamed for a massive, widespread baby binge across the New Republic.
So Mirax just casually notes she was Leia's age, making it, an appropriate cultural moment to start a family.
She used every tool in the box: respect, analysis, cultural pressure.
But Corran, ever the pilot and tactician, sets a crucial condition, a logistical hurdle that reveals his operational focus.
He insisted on delaying having a child until the pirate invids were completely destroyed and the threat neutralized.
And here's where the weight of guilt immediately slams down when Mirax vanishes.
The causality is instant and profound. The moment Mirax disappears while on an undercover operation, Corran's immediate self-reproach is just devastating.
Right. He realizes that if he hadn't set the destruction of the Invids as a condition for starting a family,
she never would have taken this highly risky undercover run working for General Kraken in the first place.
He knew she was a woman of action, incapable of idleness when a goal was within reach.
So by delaying their goal, he inadvertently created the conditions for her risk.
Yeah.
He felt he had, abrogated his responsibility by delaying the decision.
And that guilt fueled his instant, frantic resolve to save her, no matter the cost to himself or his career.
This profound sense of failure, it manifests itself in a really chilling way the moment she's gone.
Yeah.
Corellian is asleep, waiting for her when he hears her call his name, followed by a scream.
And the source material states he felt with absolute certainty she was gone, not dead. The Force connection, which he hadn't even fully embraced yet, delivered this devastating certainty.
And this certainty of loss is immediately compounded by a deep psychological consequence, what we might call an identity shock. When he wakes, he experiences a sudden inability to connect to the fine, personal details of their life together.
This is a crucial deep dive insight into Corran's trauma response. He looked around their apartment and everything feels alien.
He sees the holographs on the walls, realizing they are pleasant Corellian landscapes, but he doesn't actually know those locations.
Right, and he looks at the decorations, the furniture, the data cards, and realizes they are her things, placed by her. He feels like an observer in his own life.
He's losing the nuances of their shared history. It's like he's realizing his own memory of their shared life is conditional on her presence.
Exactly. Without her, the shared details are fading, becoming abstract concepts. When he plays the message she left, he notes that while she smiles, the thousands of nuances he normally reads into her expression are simply gone.
He felt like he could have been watching a commercial broadcast, a terrifying sign of emotional detachment beginning to set in.
That kind of emotional devastation, the feeling that reality itself is shifting, sends him scrambling for objective sanity.
He immediately reverts to his Corsac training. He calls Rogue Squadron HQ and speaks to the black droid, Emtree.
He's desperate for facts anchored in reality, specifically precise facts. He asks Entry for the exact Coordinated Galactic Time, or CGT.
And for you listening who may not recall the finer points of galactic bureaucracy, what exactly is CGT, and why is Corran's obsession with its precision so telling here?
Coordinated Galactic Time is the objective, official, and utterly impersonal chronometer of the Republic.
No motion.
No feeling, no ambiguity. It just is. The droid replies, 1.31.27 to be exact.
Sir. And Corran's internal monologue reveals everything. Normally, Emtree's robotic adherence to reality would be intensely annoying, but at that moment...
It was a lifeline to sanity, a hard, unyielding fact in a world that had suddenly become fluid.
He's using the bureaucracy to ground himself. And then he asks the ultimate question of his existential crisis. And I'm Corran Hornwright.
And the droid, true to form, confirms his voice print check. Not just yes, but within 99.4953% accuracy, attributing the slight variation only to travel stress and degree of rest.
That obsessive need for objective precision in the face of absolute internal emotional collapse tells you everything about Corran's coping mechanism.
When his emotions threaten to overwhelm him, he deploys Corsac logic like an emergency shield.
That shield, however, immediately crashes into the wall of General Kraken.
Right, his first immediate obstacle. He tries to obtain Mirax's last known operational location, knowing she was working for Kraken.
And Kraken, following strict protocols, refuses to turn over information about an undercover officer to their spouse.
And here's the intense irony.
Yeah.
Corran, as a former Corsac officer himself, instantly recognizes and respects Kraken's cold logic. He knew that if he were in Kraken's position, he would have done the exact same thing.
He respects the logic, but the pain and anger he feels regarding Mirax makes that logic irrelevant. It's an immediate, profound clash between his professional identity and his personal one.
And that pain allows the personal identity to win out immediately. He decides in that moment, I'll burn whatever political capital I have to save Mirax.
His analytical mind, which just moments before was clinging to the objectivity of CGT, is instantly overruled by the fierce, protective instinct of a husband. Since General Kraken shut down the official channels, Corran turns to his inner circle.
To his allies within the New Republic power structure, looking for any kind of leverage.
And we see this search manifest in two different parallel ways. The pragmatic, blunt analysis of his friends, and the deep, mysterious Corellian heritage he finally embraces.
Let's start with the pragmatic advice. Cordan talks to Han Solo about petitioning the Council to force Kraken's hand.
Essentially pulling rank to get the operational information.
And Han, who has a notorious history of disrespecting protocols, is surprisingly blunt here.
Han's assessment is cold and accurate. He has sympathy, even joking that Corran now has in-laws as interesting as his own, but he gives him the hard truth.
He says Corran's personal request would be pretty low on the New Republic's list of priorities.
And he uses Corran's own expertise against him. Han points out there's no way Corran, back in his Corsac days, would have turned that sort of sensitive information over to the spouse of an undercover officer.
It's a very tough love application of the rules, but you have to ask yourself, isn't Han Solo, given his history as a notorious smuggler, the absolute worst person to be lecturing Corran on the sanctity of official protocols?
That's a fair point, but I think that's precisely why the advice lands. It's not coming from a rule follower. It's coming from someone who knows how the rules are applied when the stakes are high. It validates Kraken's position, making Corran realize the political route is a dead end.
Exactly. It forces him to look inward, which is precisely what his former Corsac partner, Aayla Wasiri, encourages.
Aayla offers not just logistical help, but deep psychological perspective on Corran's character flaws. She immediately diagnoses his Corellian tendency to overthink everything.
That remnant of his Corsac training that is actively hurting him now.
She delivers a truly brutal piece of self-assessment. The one thing you haven't figured out yet is that the person you're really in competition with is yourself.
That's a powerful insight. He's setting impossible standards for himself, isn't he?
It explains so much about his need for precision, the CGT, the obsession with details.
Aayla tells him Luke Skywalker might be a tough taskmaster, but Luke won't be as hard on him as Corran is on himself.
Right, noting the vast majority of the pressure he feels is coming from right inside your think box. This analysis essentially gives Corran permission to stop being a perfect detective and start being a desperate husband.
And Aayla provides a crucial piece of logistical help that makes his subsequent undercover mission possible.
She finds him a secure communication route to his grandfather on Corellia.
This is vital because he still has old murder warrants out for him, a legacy of his enemy, Curtin Lore, and he needs to operate outside Corellian government scrutiny.
She argues he must wait to confront the Invids until he is trained.
So you've got logistical help, emotional insight, and political realism, but then you have the purely personal support of Wedge Antilles.
Wedge, the unwavering friend. Corran half jokes about Wedge getting used to the title general, but Wedge quickly dismisses any personal ambition. He sees Mirax as close to a little sister and states nothing he has to do is more important than helping his friends.
Wedge's loyalty is tangible. The sources note he resigned a ground assignment, pulling debris out of low orbits over Coruscant, a tedious but important reconstruction duty, just to be available to help Corran.
He demonstrates his hierarchy of values right there.
He does, and Corran asks Wedge to lobby Leia Organa Solo for the operational information, knowing it's a long shot, but Wedge pledges support regardless of Corran's final decision.
So with the political route stalled, Corran takes Aayla's advice and retreats into his Corellian heritage.
Adopting the alias Kieran Halcyon and visiting his grandfather, Rostak Horn. This is where the detective finally allows his hidden past to surface.
And Rostak Horn confirms the Halcyon family's profound history among the Corellian Jedi.
But this isn't the Jedi Order we usually think of. Rostek clarifies that the Halcyons were strong in the Force but not flashy,
They were subtle influencers.
focusing on small, quiet actions, a word here, an act there, allowing people to choose between good or evil at their own speed.
This is a crucial distinction, isn't it? It contrasts sharply with the popular image of lightsaber-wielding, castle-defending heroes.
Absolutely. It speaks to a Jedi tradition focused on grounding and protection, rather than galactic conquest.
It validates Corran's innate caution and his detective's mindset, which prefers influence over confrontation.
And Rostek also explains the family's disappearance. What the Empire didn't destroy regarding the lineage, Rostek himself destroyed or hid away.
He didn't want all traces of his friend to perish.
Right. Rostek became the silent, private keeper of the Horn Halcyon knowledge.
It's also here that Corran finally achieves perspective on his relationship with his late father. He reflects on the last gift from his father.
The trust implicit in allowing Corran to choose when to listen to his final recorded message.
Corran realizes he'd been making the gift to last longer by delaying listening.
And when he finally plays the message, it confirms his father's love and pride and starts to explain the hidden Halcyon lineage he was now adopting. It's a moment of profound emotional reconciliation.
It clears his mind for the trials ahead.
And that heritage is crystallized in a physical offering. Rostek leads Corran to retrieve a chest from his garden.
This chest contains Nija Halcyon's physical items: a cloak, boots, a first aid kit, and an empty lightsaber slot.
But the true blueprint for Corran's future comes in the form of deceptively boring files.
The encrypted files titled Corellian Horticultural Digests.
Classic Corellian deception hiding critical information in plain sight. These contain Anija's journals and teachings, providing the practical, strategic blueprint Corran will use to blend his two identities.
Before leaving Corellia, Corran has one more conversation that connects back to the original catalyst for his guilt.
Right, he speaks with his loyal Gan friend, Oral Korg.
Who reveals just how invested Mirax was in the idea of children.
Oral confirms Mirax had spoken to him about the discussion, asking him to encourage Corran if the topic came up.
This reinforces the idea that Mirax was gently nudging Corran toward this family path, using her entire social network.
And Oral also provides a moment of levity by explaining his own cultural perspective, the Gand tradition of Genwam.
The Genwan tradition is fascinating. A wife is not chosen by the male Gand himself, but is instead chosen for him by the Gand community.
At which point he shall proudly commit genetic fusion.
It's the ultimate outsourcing of relationship stress, isn't it?
Corran must have looked at that process with a strange blend of envy and disbelief.
It certainly highlights just how complex and self-imposed his own decision-making process was, especially compared to the simpler, duty-bound Gand tradition.
For sure. And it also reinforces the guilt Corran felt for setting the Invid's condition. Oral also agrees to oversee Corran's R2 unit, Whistler.
Ensuring the droid tracks Invid's intelligence and criminal activity analysis while Corran is away, minimizing distractions.
The detective is leaving, but the investigation continues remotely.
Armed with a new alias, Kieran Halcyon, a family history, and a very heavy dose of guilt, Corran heads to the Jedi Academy on Yavin 4.
And this environment is immediately alien to his structured Corsac background. It creates intense internal friction.
Absolutely. The Academy is housed in the venerable, squared-off, pyramidal stone structure of the Great Temple.
This physical setting is imposing, but the training philosophy is anything but rigid.
Right. Luke Skywalker, as the Master, emphasizes a fluid training style that actively rejects the objective precision Corran values.
He even deliberately rejects coordinated galactic time, the CGT Corran clung to for sanity, because he wants to minimize pressure on the students.
He believes that worrying about strict time and schedules can interfere with his students' ability to feel and channel the Force.
So Corran, the man who lives by objective reality, is thrown into an environment where students are encouraged to do whatever they feel necessary to be at ease and receptive.
This clash immediately highlights Corran's core struggles. He is suspicious, analytical, and prone to overthinking.
Which are the qualities that made him a legendary detective.
But Luke notes these qualities raise walls, allow fear to grow, actively interfering with his ability to channel the Force.
His greatest asset becomes his greatest inhibitor.
And physically, he immediately runs into a genealogical barrier. He discovers he has no strength and no endurance when it comes to telekinesis.
While other students are levitating rocks or braiding Massassi trees with the Force, Corran can barely move a pebble.
This deficiency is later discovered by Teon to be a hallmark of the Halcyon line, confirming the stories Rostek shared.
They were known as stubborn groundstanders.
And this is a powerful piece of symbolism. They couldn't perform the prodigious leaps or levitation tricks required to quickly escape danger.
So instead, they bravely stood their ground, trading their lives to protect comrades.
Corran's perceived weakness is actually a genetic predisposition toward duty and protection.
Right. And to help structure their understanding of these subjective powers, the Academy uses the Holocron's definition of Jedi skills, broken down into 3 fundamental categories.
It's important to outline these, as Corran will eventually excel in one of the most difficult ones.
The 3 areas are, first, control. This is the internal skill, the Jedi's ability to recognize the Force within themselves and use it for internal benefit, like dulling pain or maintaining a calm state.
Self-mastery.
Exactly. Second is sense. This is external recognition, feeling the Force in the universe, drawing information about the world around them. It's about perception.
Yeah, and third.
Alter. The third and most difficult area to master. This involves the student's ability to modify and redistribute Force energy, influencing the outside world.
Often involving manipulation of objects or, more dangerously, minds.
And while he struggles mightily with the physical aspects of alter telekinesis, he discovers he has a surprising innate proficiency in the modification of perceptions.
The alter mind power.
Yes. Corran had actually used this unconsciously during his escape from the Lusankya years earlier, making a stormtrooper not see him by intensely focusing on being unseen.
He possesses a terrifying natural talent for mental manipulation.
And Luke immediately expresses profound concern over Corran's ease in making others see what he wants them to see.
He warns Corrigan to be extremely careful, noting that the dark side is seductive for those who want too much too fast.
And that power over the minds of others can easily corrupt the wielder. He encourages Corran to only practice simple, harmless things, like altering the perception of color in a teammate's hair.
And only with their full knowledge and permission. The master recognized the potential danger in the detective's mind being linked to such a potent influence ability.
Unfortunately, the need for these powers becomes terrifyingly real with the death of Gantoris.
Which unveils a major dark side threat on Yavin 4, proving the dark side is already fishing for talent.
Gantoris, a fellow apprentice, was seduced by a dark man, identified as the 4,000-year-old entity Exar Kun, or perhaps a new Dark Lord fashioned after him.
The source documents describe the tragedy unfolding when Gantoris becomes a shadow in a nightmare sequence, attempting to kill Luke, and is later found murdered by the entity.
And the residue of the entity's presence is described with chilling detail.
Yeah, the body of Gantoris leaves behind a poisonously sweet scent, a physical manifestation of the dark energy that murdered him.
And the strength of this ancient presence is confirmed when the Bodo Bas Holocron, a repository of ancient Jedi knowledge, is found melted and destroyed.
This confirms that someone with immense power in the Force is actively working against them. Corran is tasked with building a profile on this dark man, using his highly trained detective background.
Internally, Corran analyzes why he struggles to fully connect to the Force. He notes his Corsac training taught him to actively deaden his feelings and dehumanize targets.
Right. He learned to treat targets professionally as them, to maintain the emotional distance necessary for survival when dealing with grand cruelties and death.
This habit, which was a necessity in the field, created a protective wall around his heart, a deliberate isolation that now interferes with the necessary empathy and openness required to channel the Force.
And he identifies Tian, a fellow student, as a danger to this protective mechanism, precisely because of her very open and friendly way of dealing with everyone.
Her willingness to offer comfort threatens his protective self-isolation, which he knows is interfering with his ability to access the Force. He literally sees kindness as a tactical weakness he needs to guard against.
This internal struggle culminates in his ultimate aha moment regarding his father's final memory. He realizes the silent question he believed he saw in his father's dying eyes, a question about Corran's absence, was actually part of his self-inflicted guilt and was never a condemnation.
He needs to move past that internal narrative of self-reproach.
And Corran finally grasps the Corellian Jedi path. He must stop thinking and start feeling, embracing his full potential.
However, his Corsac habit of relentless self-competition makes him immediately doubt his timing.
Right. He fears he's taking too long. I'll be a Jedi about the time the sun goes nova.
That thought, while self-deprecating, signifies the shift. He chooses the path of action, he synthesizes these insights in his newly revealed heritage, and decides to leave the subjective training environment of the Great Temple and take his skills directly into the field.
Now we transition from Corran, the hesitant Jedi apprentice, to Corran, the hardened undercover operative.
Right. And his Corellian network, thanks to Rostek and Ayala, provides him with a perfect cover identity to infiltrate the Invids.
He adopts the identity of Jensaarai, who Rostek describes as a small-time crook with ship theft in his past, but now a reformed starship broker.
And the documentation is meticulously detailed and, crucially, quite genuine, enough to pass the most rigorous inspection.
The backstory includes enough youthful indiscretions and smuggling arrests to show skill, but not enough notoriety to raise red flags among the powerful.
And his choice of transportation is brilliant, the opposite of what a New Republic hero would do. Rostek arranges for a luxury transport, the Tinta Blue shuttle.
This is tactical genius disguised as decadence.
Exactly. Rostek correctly advised that no Imperial sympathizer on Corellia would ever believe a rebel hero could afford luxury passage. The luxury itself becomes a tool for a low profile.
It ensures the Invids and their sympathizers view him as a self-interested rogue, not a New Republic agent.
And Corran immediately integrates into the Invids, joining Jacob Neve's survivors crew on Corcus, and instantly finds himself in a skirmish.
This confrontation is where he draws his first operational line, demonstrating his moral code in action, but framed in tactical language.
During the fight, Corran chooses to switch his weapons to ion cannons to disable the enemy pilots instead of using lethal lasers.
When Neve questions why he's taking the less destructive route, Corran provides a cold, hard, Corsac logic explanation.
He tells Neve that killing the pilots turns bodyguards into martyrs who fight to the death, and that's strategically unsound.
Disabling them, however, creates an opportunity for them to back off the next time they see the Invids.
It makes future engagements easier and less costly for Nive's crew. He avoids unnecessary bloodshed not because he's a pacifist, but because it's strategically advantageous.
This is the synthesis of his identity, the Jedi impulse wrapped in the detective's logic.
And his ultimate target is Admiral Leonia Tavira.
The sources describe her as young, highly confident, with piercing violet eyes. A true pirate queen who obtained her star destroyer, the Invidious, from Teradok via unknown means.
She is clearly intelligent and utterly ruthless, and her major tactical advantage is her inner circle. She uses Jensaarai advisors.
These are former Imperial dark side practitioners who wear special Force-attuned armor.
They provide her with continuous hostile intent readings. This means Tavira is incredibly hard to anticipate or trap unless the threat is direct, as she can sense deception and malice.
So to get close, Corran has to get aboard her ship, and Tavira immediately tries to mentally probe him as Jensaarai.
Her subtle but profound test of his identity.
And since Corran had some training in the alter mind power, he feels her probe creeping tentatively into his mind.
But rather than resisting and exposing his power, he chooses to deflect it by flooding his own consciousness with everything he knew she was looking for.
Shallow, sensationalized information about the Force and Jedi Knights.
He specifically dredges up images from trashy holodrama and news documentaries, insisting her probe in a wealth of misleading, shallow data.
He essentially gives her the most boring, predictable answer possible. He makes himself look like a shallow enthusiast, easily dismissed.
Which allows her to drop her guard slightly. Her next move, though, is the absolute moral test.
Tavira offers Corran a position as her consort,
which would grant him immediate, intimate access to the Invidious crew and, critically, Mirax's likely location.
The absolute fastest, most certain way to his goal.
This creates an intense internal conflict, the moral crucible of the mission. Corran realizes the offer is attractive, noting he is slightly flattered by her attention.
Right, that Tavira's attraction to him pleased me. He understands he is trying to wrap a selfish desire in noble reasons.
He recognizes he would be sleeping with her because he wanted to, not purely for the mission, no matter how much he tried to rationalize it as means to an end.
And this realization is his defining moral line. He realizes he cannot allow the ends to justify the means.
He decides that the physical intimacy, even if done to get the information he needed, would fundamentally compromise his integrity, breaking the vows of faithfulness he maintained with Mirax.
He realizes that to save his wife, he must first remain the man she married.
And that realization is the trigger for his most significant personal act.
He immediately sets about constructing his lightsaber, using the instructions found encrypted in Neja Halcyon's horticultural digests.
And this construction is more than just making a weapon, it is the physical definition of his renewed identity.
Let's talk about the symbolism of the components, because they tell the whole story of his synthesized identity. He uses salvaged materials, which speaks to his resourceful nature.
The hilt is the throttle assembly and handlebar tube from a junked speeder bike, a tribute to his identity as a pilot.
And the power control circuitry came from an old capital ship-grade ion cannon controller.
A nod to his Corsair tactical experience and his preference for disabling rather than destroying.
And the power source. The focus crystal is perhaps the most poetic rejection of his current temptation. He uses the jewels he salvaged from Admiral Tavira's brandy snifters.
He is literally forging the tools of his Corellian destiny out of the symbols of Tavira's decadence and corruption.
He consciously uses this action to define his renewed moral line and commitment to the Jedi path.
With his lightsaber built and his integrity secure, Corran begins his terrifying Jedi terror campaign on Corcus.
He doesn't use the lightsaber openly yet, but he uses his ultramind ability to project powerful, crippling images.
He projects images of avenging victims and impending doom into the minds of gang leaders like Jacob Neve. They are left trembling, often unsure of what they saw, but utterly convinced that a vengeful, powerful force is among them.
And Corran's genius is his cover story. He publicly announces he is hunting the Jedi while secretly operating as one.
The campaign culminates in the spectacular confrontation with Sheila the Hutt.
Sheila challenges the mysterious Jedi, setting a trap in his warehouse, rigging it with a massive amount of explosive charges.
Corran enters, senses the explosives, and when Shala, seated on his dais, presses the trigger, Corran executes a magnificent, powerful application of alterability.
He uses the Force to instantly and powerfully draw the explosion inward, containing the firestorm, imploding the blast.
This action achieves several goals simultaneously. It kills Shala instantly. It contains the massive destruction.
And it solidifies the Invid's fear of the Jedi as a force of impossible contained destruction, a foe who can destroy you without touching the outside world.
It's the perfect blend of Corsair strategy and Halcyon power, leading directly to the final confrontation.
The terror campaign works perfectly, destabilizing the Invids and setting the stage for the rescue mission.
And Luke Skywalker finally joins Corran on Corcus, bringing an absolutely essential, if bizarre, tool, and Ysalamiri.
And Ysalamiri is a small lizard-like creature from Merc that creates a localized bubble of force nullification.
And Luke uses this creature to level the playing field as they prepare to interrogate captured Jensaarai, who rely on their force-attuned armor to maintain composure.
And Corran, in a brilliant moment of role reversal, coaches the Jedi Master on interrogation tactics.
He tells Luke to think Hutt, but with eyebrows, advising him to stand malevolently by the door and simply stare.
And the presence of the force-nullifying creature makes the Jensaarai feel immediately exposed and vulnerable. With their force shield gone, Corran and Luke are able to break their composure and gain intelligence.
So the allied team Corran, Luke, Oral, and the diplomatic Hamasi Illegos Akla assault Tavira's base on Susefi.
It's here that they confront the Jensaarai leader, who mistakes Corran for his ancestor.
Right, believing the Halcyon line destroyed them 40 years prior and have returned to finish the job.
This is a massive confrontation built on a core misunderstanding, a generational tragedy rooted in a lie.
The Jensaarai are consumed by the hatred of the Jedi, who they believe murdered their families.
In Illegos Akla, the Kamasi Trustant provides the breakthrough. He offers to share a treasured memory with the Jensaarai leader through Corran's force projection.
A unique Kamasi gift only shareable with the Jedi.
And the projected memory reveals the full, tragic truth of Nija Halcyon's death. It shows Nija and his friends being hunted by Dark Jedi.
Nija's comrade, a man named Spicewood, used the rarest of all Jedi gifts, which is implied to be a total, profound self-sacrifice and energy dissipation to defeat the Dark Jedi by imploding them.
And the devastating consequence was that this implosion shattered the massive Duracrete dome covering the fighting area.
The Jensaarai leader's husband was crushed when the dome collapsed during this counterattack, the survivors seeing only the resultant collapse and death.
They concluded that the Jedi, the Halcyons, were murderers.
It's the tragic irony of the war. An act of ultimate sacrifice was misinterpreted as an act of calculated murder.
Corran, projecting this full memory, breaks the Saraikar's generational hatred. The burden of the past is lifted, and their resistance ends.
With the Jensaarai neutralized, Morax is located in holding cell 02021020, exactly as Exar Kun had shown Corran in his vision.
She is seemingly asleep, with a small gray device flickering with red and green lights resting on her forehead.
And Corran leaves her momentarily to execute his final masterful bluff against Admiral Tavira. This is the moment where his Altermind ability meets his Corsair tactical training in one flawless execution.
He uses his ultramind ability in a final, direct, powerful confrontation through the comms.
Tavira's mind is flooded with every detail and memory Corran has of the massive superstar destroyer, the Lusankya.
He channels a wave of overwhelming fear and conviction, convincing her that the New Republic saw her as such a dire threat. They had sent their greatest weapon, the superstar destroyer, along with the Jedi, to trap her.
The illusion is so complete, so overpowering, that Tavira screams, "It's a trap!" orders immediate evasive maneuvers, and flees the system in utter terror.
The rescue is complete without further bloodshed.
In the aftermath, Corran faces his powerful father-in-law, Booster Tarek.
Who quickly arrives in his own star destroyer, the Errant Venture. Booster had tracked Merrick's disappearance and showed up with his own security forces.
Booster confronts Corran, having suspected all along Corran was working as a Jedi, and tests his son-in-law's loyalty and commitment.
He challenges Corran's intention to cooperate with Jacob Knive, the pirate leader, suggesting Corran should seize Knive's resources and exact vengeance.
But Corran asserts his new mission. There is no try, Booster. This statement isn't just a Jedi mantra, it's a commitment to decisive action and order.
He refuses to allow Booster to interfere with the fragile peace he established, demonstrating that his commitment to galactic order and stability now supersedes personal vengeance or even family ambition.
Finally, Corran informs Luke Skywalker that he is leaving the Academy. He has achieved his goal and found his true path, but he first offers a critical analysis of Luke's teaching style.
Rooted in his Corsac suspicion and keen observation.
Corran argues that Luke treats his students like children, accepting too much responsibility himself, getting buried under the weight of what you see as a string of failures.
And he contends that this prevents the students from truly accepting their personal responsibilities as Jedi.
And he drives this home with a chilling critique regarding Kip Duran's actions while under Kun's influence.
An insight that defines the boundary between influence and control.
Corran asserts that Kip was only under Kun's influence, not absolute, unthinking control.
He reasons that if Kip had been under total control, Kun would simply have had Kip park the invincible Sun Crusher on Luke's unconscious body or fly him out into space to die instantly.
The crucial takeaway is that Kip did neither of those things. The fact that Kip held back proves he didn't want to kill Luke.
He defined his own moral red line despite the powerful influence of the Dark Lord. This wasn't just Corran being a clever detective. It was Corran redefining the very nature of dark side corruption.
He found Kip's moral limit.
This realization that moral choice always remains, regardless of influence, allows Corran to redefine himself and his destiny.
He chooses to remain Corran Horn, the man Mirax loved, allowing the alias Kieran Halcyon to fade away.
His redefined path is a blend of his Corsac skills and his Jedi abilities in a practical strategic role.
He explains he will stay with Rogue Squadron, using his gifts where they are critically needed for missions, becoming a surprise waiting for anyone who needs one.
He chooses a life of continuous service and protection, embodying the subtle strength of the Corellian Jedi tradition over the pursuit of pure mastery in the Great Temple.
And that brings us to the core synthesis of this entire deep dive.
Corran's success wasn't dependent on becoming a pure, traditional Jedi Master, but on the practical synthesis of all his past identities: pilot, detective, husband, and Halcyon.
Absolutely. His journey demonstrated that moral integrity, exemplified by his agonizing but firm refusal of Tavira's consort offer, was as critical to his success as any force power.
His strategic deceptive actions, the ion cannon discipline, the terror campaign, the final bluff of the Lusankya, were successful precisely because he blended the cunning of a Corsac operative with the unique focused abilities of a Halcyon Jedi.
He ultimately succeeded where pure faith or pure logic alone might have failed, because he brought his entire complex self to the mission.
Corran chose to return to a position where his service to others was paramount, choosing the fighter cockpit and the detective's desk over the isolation of the Great Temple.
He rejected the traditional Jedi path for the pragmatic engagement of Rogue Squadron, embodying the Corellian Jedi tradition of protecting the vulnerable from the shadows.
And that choice of service over legacy leads us directly back to where we started: family. Despite the massive disruption, Corran and Mirax successfully completed their mission and are together again, ready to move forward with their life plan.
And the sources leave us with a final provocative thought regarding his powerful family legacy, whether that legacy is Booster Tarek, Rostek Horn, or Nija Halcyon.
Corran realizes they still have one last challenge as a couple, now that they're ready to have children.
A domestic challenge that dwarfs the confrontation with Tavira. He realizes, we have to tell your father our first child will not be named for him.
What does it take for a hero who has embraced his identity, survived death, and saved the galaxy to finally choose his own family's path over the expectation of a powerful legacy?
That choice to define his own future, separate from the shadows of his father, grandfather, or even his father-in-law, that is the final, most defining act of Corran Horn's journey.
That's the challenge waiting for them now.